Um, the grief never really leaves. What gift did your grief give you in terms of creativity?
That's a really good question about gifts from grief, because I think we often overlook that. I think we often think of grief as just being this sadness and a weakness. Um, when actually, when I think of my grief, it gave me a lot of strength,
Yeah.
and it gave me a lot of determination. And I think um, those two characteristics have been really vital in terms of trying to become a musician, because inevitably, being a creative, you suffer setbacks, and you suffer um, people saying not nice things about your art. And so I think the grief gave me that resilience to ride those storms and to persevere. And I think I'm really grateful for that. And it sounds like a weird thing to say, to be grateful for a loss, but I think what I mean is I'm grateful for the insights that loss has given me.
Yeah, that makes absolutely sense. How did 15 years help you heal?
I think. Sorry, there we go. How did it help me heal? It helped me heal immensely, because it was the first time that I'd spoken about a lot of these things. In my career in the past, I'd maybe alluded to the fact that I'd lost my dad, but I'd never really spoken about it.
Yeah.
And then to put an album out that's solely about him and solely about our relationship, and as complex that as that was, it's felt incredibly healing, talking to people like you who can resonate with what I've described. Feels like, makes you feel less alone in what you've experienced. And I think that's one of the things that grief can make you feel, is very alone. And particularly, I felt, having lost my dad at quite a young age, at 21, there wasn't many people around me who could relate to that, because obviously their parents were still around. And so it's quite hard to describe to your friends what it's like. And you don't want to sort of burden your friends, or that's how I felt. You didn't want to burden your friends with the weight of your loss. And so yeah, to be able to put it down into music and connect with like-minded people, or people who've been through something similar, I think was definitely something I'd been looking for a long time.
Yeah. What was more cathartic, writing it or recording the album?
I think the writing process was the biggest hurdle, in just sort of putting it out there just for myself. And then the recording of it was quite hard, in terms of singing these songs and thinking to myself, am I going to be able to sing them live without breaking down? And I still think about that. And I think I'm more comfortable with the idea of maybe breaking down. I've spoken to a few other musicians who've written songs on a similar theme, and I think they've said, nobody's gonna boo you if you start crying, or if you start, your voice starts to wobble. They're not gonna be like, boo. So I think taking that mindset of the idea that people are with you on this journey, and they're not gonna criticize you for showing emotion. And so that's been a really helpful thing for me to understand, for me to learn that opening up and talking about this is hopefully only going to help other people, and it certainly helped me. But so, to answer your question, yeah, both aspects have been really healing, and in different ways have been also very difficult. But I believe that it's very hard to create good art without digging under the surface. I think you have to, in order to. I think being vulnerable is a really important part of making good art.
It makes you real. You're not a cookie cutter stamp press, like a lot of pop music is. You're just like, oh, they all sound like XYZ.
Yeah.
What was the hardest song to record on the album?
I mean, pretty much most of them were pretty hard. I mean, that was the funny thing was that because of COVID, I had to record most of this album on my own, and so in a weird way, I think that helped with these songs because I was feeling quite emotional, and because there'd often be times when I'd try and sing a take and I would have to stop because I'd start breaking down. I think uh, I felt more comfortable in that because I was in my own safe space. I think if I'd have been in a studio with lots of other musicians staring at me, um, I think it would have been really hard, and maybe I would have given less in a
Yeah,
way because I'd have been sort of have more of a protective armor on me. So I think the fact that I had that intimate space to myself to really be vulnerable, apart from the people who were walking by, probably looking in, being like, "Why is that guy crying on his own next to a microphone?
is he okay?
Are you all right?"
Was there any?
um,
Sorry,
sorry.
I was like, oh, I was letting you finish. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was finished.
Was there ever a point in recording the album that you were like, I can't, I don't want to finish it, I want to give up?
I think there were lots of points when I thought, this is helping me, but is it going to help anybody else? Does this album need to be out in the world, or should I just keep it as a private thing for me? There was definitely a lot of times when I thought that, when I thought, is this just this is this just a project that I need to make for myself, but is there any value of it to anybody else? But I've been really pleased to just get messages from people and talking to yourself, people who can relate to the stories. And so that makes it feel worthwhile, that even if it's only a few people, but if they have somehow seen themselves in the songs and that's helped them understand their grief, then it's worth it.
I was just saying, it is absolutely worth it. Thank you for putting yourself out there.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have a song that's a favorite on the album? That's your favorite?
It keeps changing. I think I'm really proud of In My Daughter's Eyes, because I think what I like about that one from my own point of view is that I'm focusing more on what he left behind, like the love and the fact that I can see him in my children. I think that was a huge help for me with my grief, is to sort of see the circle of life, as cliche as that sounds, but
Yeah.
to see the progression and see that we carry our loved ones with us in the next generation. And I think that for me has been a real comfort.
Yeah. Knowing now and given the chance, knowing what you know now and given the chance, what would you go back and say to your dad? Or would there be anything?
Well, funnily enough, in that song, I say, I wish I would have said I love you. I think I wish I would have said that even, just a few times. But like I've said in those songs, that I think we both had this masculine fear of opening up. Yeah. And he certainly suffered from that. And I feel like I'm trying to be less like that. And so, yeah, I think that was the biggest thing, is I wish we would have just told each other how we felt. Yeah.
Well, that leads into the next question. Like, what would be the one message you would give to your fellow male species men, when it comes to dealing with their mental health and their emotions?
Yeah, I think that would be it. That would be to sort of to not be afraid of showing vulnerability. I think that's the thing, I think, that holds a lot of men back from talking about what they're going through, is the idea that vulnerability equals weakness. And what I've come to realize is that it doesn't. And men and women, we all have these demons in our head. Nobody is immune from that, and that spans across wealth, race, gender. It doesn't matter. We're all affected by these voices in our heads in different ways. And so to talk about those voices and to realize that you're not alone in having those voices, I think is really, really helpful. And so that's what I would say, is to open up and find that avenue of expression, whatever that avenue of expression is, whether it's talking to your friends or talking to a stranger, or like me, singing about it or writing about it, whatever it is, find that avenue.
Yeah. Which leads into the next question. What's your biggest lesson that you've learned from your podcast, Feels Like Healing?
Oh, I've learned so much. I'm really glad that I've done it, because talking to different people from different, who've approached it in different ways, I've realized that there are nuggets of my experience in everybody else's, even if it might not be 100% the same. And like I've said, it's really helped me to understand a lot of the ways that I was reacting, a lot of the things I was feeling, was grief. And to know that, having not had any professional help at the time that he died, I just sort of carried on with my life. Looking back now, I see my behaviors were in line with a lot of what other people said, and feeling like a lot of other people felt. And that's been really helpful to me. And that's kind of why I hope, if there's a younger me listening to the podcast at that younger age, that they can hear these stories and realize that it's a really common thing to go through.
At least you've left a legacy for your children to lean on for advice, when they have to deal with their own grief. You've got the legacy of 15 years and, Feels Like Healing, where they can go back. Like you said, you missed hearing your dad's voice. They'll have recordings of your voice and advice,
True.
What's in store for you for the rest of the year?
So, I think, as I alluded to earlier, a lot of the album was made in isolation because of COVID, and so I think what I've really missed is collaboration. So I think one of my New Year's resolutions is to do a lot more collaborating. So I'd like to work with other musicians, be in the same room as other musicians a lot more. So that's and see what happens, because I feel like when you collaborate, exciting things can happen that you perhaps never expected. So and to play more live music, that's another thing that I'm really looking forward to doing.
That's awesome. So there's 3 questions we always ask everyone. What artist or band do you feel is the most underrated, and why?
Oh, I wish you'd have given me a notice on that one. Who's underrated and why? Ooh, there's so many people who you'd think should have had a bigger career. There's a Scottish singer-songwriter called John Martin. I don't know if you heard of him over in Australia, but he was around in like the 70s and 80s. And he had an amazing guitar style, but he was a bit of he had his demons, shall we say. And so I don't think he ever got the career that maybe he could have had or should have had. So I'd say John Martin.
All right. I will have to look him up. What artist or band would you like to collaborate with, and why?
Oh yeah, that's another great one. There's so many people. I could just give you a bucket list here. I think I'd really love to. I'll put out Taylor Swift. She'd be cool. It'd be interesting.
You guys, like you would vocally compliment each other.
Oh, thanks. I'll take that as a compliment.
I think we're gonna put that out there. We'll get the Swifties on board.
No, she's a great songwriter, and I'd be really interested to see how her creative mind works, how she writes songs, and I think it'd be really cool.
That'd be awesome. And last question: who would you like to tour with, and why?
I'd love to open for someone like The National. That would be really cool. They're a band that I've loved for a long time. Who else would I love? I mean, yeah, if Taylor Swift's looking for an opening act, why not?
You never know. You never know. You got to put it out into the universe so the universe can get your back. That is all I have for you. I don't even want to take up too much of your time because I know it's early morning over there. So thank you for everything.
It's been nice to talk to you, Sheila.
Same. It's nice talking to you too, Al. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.